Okay, I just started. See you when you get back. Ah. Hey, prehistoric and Annie Lou and hey, hi everybody. Hi Zachary. Prehistoric wonders why he always ends up first. I don't know. Luck is a good thing, right? Hello. Yes, Ian had to go to the restroom. He's gonna come right back, but I woke up with a headache and I'm feeling better. So finally, the stuff I took for the headache worked, so that was nice. It was kind of a nasty one. And we're just coming along. Hi, Ryder. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day to you too. Malacita's Love says Happy V Day. Yes, they have all these wonderful holidays they're always trying to get people involved in, right? But hey, it's a good opportunity to talk about love and the nature of it and everything else if we want to. So, whatever. We got a nice stormy day here in the Pacific Northwest. Not bad as far as like north of us, they had the freezing rain and 2 feet of snow and all sorts of other fun things, but we just had pouring buckets of rain. It sounded like our house was under a waterfall. It was quite loud and spectacular. Yes, actually, Sasquatches are reportedly near us, and I've read a number of the reports. I don't go looking for them myself, haven't been wandering out in the woods, but I've read a number of first encounters of people who say that they've seen and encountered Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Northern California isn't too far from us, and that's another location. In fact, we went on a paranormal investigation in a town in Northern California, and the hotel we stayed at had a Sasquatch cage ready for the first live specimen. So that was kind of bizarre. But hey, early April showers. Yeah, this is the time of year where we get the showers. We need to catch up on our rainfall. I think we're doing pretty well, though, as far as the amount of rain we're supposed to be getting at this point. So hopefully that will mean not as bad a fire season, but you never know. It's one of those things. Phoebe says, I'm in the Bay Area. So San Francisco Bay Area, that Bay Area, because there are more than one. There's more than one Bay Area. In fact, I think ours is called the Bay Area as well. So hi, Phoebe. Writer says, I've been drinking wine, so my spelling may not be so great. Just letting everyone know just in case. Hey, that's okay with me. Phoebe says, I haven't seen one. I thought about making an offering, but I want to do it the right way if and when I did. I'm not sure about making an offering to see a Sasquatch because, some of those encounters that they've reported are not that positive. You might want to think about that. Phoebe says Oakland East Bay. Okay, a different bay than us. Well, you have to be out in the woods to see them. But when I lived up in northern British Columbia, I ran into a number of people who said that they had pretty close encounters. But yeah, I mean, even though I lived in the middle of absolute nowhere and we had lots and lots of animals around us, that was one that never showed up at our cabin. There were bears, grizzly bears, and black bears, and brown bears, and wolves, and coyotes, and cougars, and bobcat, and moose, and eagles. Lots of eagles, bald and golden eagles, ravens, owls, all kinds of things. But never did run into a Sasquatch when I lived up in there, and that was an area where there had been some sightings. Yeah, Ryder likes the movie Harry and the Hendersons. Thank you. I decided to wear something that was, matches my colors a little bit for today. I'm glad you like my shawl. This is not the one I made, though. This is the one I picked up. It's nice and soft. I like the softness of the thing. Prehistoric Matt says Bigfoot probably got freaked out by all the fairies around the property. Yeah, that'd be funny. I wanted to clarify something. Not that I think any of you guys are the ones that have been writing me this message, but someone has been asking me to give them an introduction to the Fae for a while, as if that's something I could do, and it isn't. I don't give personal introductions to other people for the Fae folk. It doesn't work that way. I might be working kind of with them, as it were, at the moment, but I don't work for them, and they don't work for me, so that's just kind of a little clarification there. So Phoebe says, that's why I haven't yet, but I don't know, animals always seem to love me, so I thought just saying like a thanking kind of offering. Do you recommend trying to make offering for the Fae or others? I make offerings for the animals and for the Fae, and whenever we have like a feast or something like that, we always make a food offering to the earth. So I don't see a problem with that. And no, this is not wool. I am highly allergic to wool. That would be very unpleasant for me. But yeah, Dora Mifa says hello. Hello. And Phoebe says, and if so, how is the best way to do it? As far as leaving an offering, for the fairies, they seem to, traditional offering is rice and milk and honey together is actually one of the more common offerings throughout the world for the fairy folk. They also like to have bright little objects like colored stones or glass or things like that that are little bauble kinds of things. And they like their, the plants and the earth being taken care of. So just having a little garden and stuff like that can be quite productive when it comes to making a connection with them. So Zachary says, I've been trying to contact the Fae for a while. Yeah, and they're kind of shy. And then, they've been here for a long time, and they've been sort of coexisting beside us in that sense, where their reality is energetically different from our reality as far as that goes. And so learning how to communicate and see that takes effort on our part. And I think that they have an easier time seeing us than we have of seeing them as far as that goes. Annie Luhu says, my father used to eat rice, milk, and sugar. Phoebe says, I just moved with a balcony. I'm definitely going to make a fairy garden. We have the redwoods up the hills. I wanted to. There's probably more to that sentence. It says I wanted to got, so I think there's more. I wanted to get to and meditate and do like a healing the earth meditation. Yeah, I really liked my time when I was able to daily go out and sit underneath the cedar tree. And there were 4 separate trees in a little grove next to a creek at the old trapper's cabin that I lived at for a while. And it was sort of like a natural meditation area. In a deep forest like that, the undergrowth, there's not much at all because it's sort of not enough light for low growth plants. And so it makes it almost like a little natural circle that was there. And then the little creek running by was quite pleasant. And in the summertime, it's quite warm. So I would do that pretty often. And that was really nice to make that connection with the trees that way. Josh next says, allow super chat next. I'm not sure what that means. Allow super chat. Hey says, I'm planning on making a garden to attract bees and fairies once it gets warmer enough for plants to grow. Well, if you can attract bees and butterflies, you'll be doing great. I think the fairies kind of come along with them. So You don't have to worry too much about the one if you're doing the other, as far as that goes. So we did have a couple of questions that came in this week that I wanted to get addressed because one of our viewers is reading Barden's books, which we have recommended, of course, because we trust him as a source. And one of the things he talked about or talks about is astral projection and the potential dangers of astral projection if you get so much into your astral body that you're then breathing in your astral body and then your physical body stops breathing. And this is a dangerous moment in time because if your physical body is not getting oxygen, there's that potential for things to go horribly awry. The thing is most people never get to that point where they're actually breathing in their astral body. So I think he included that just as a general warning of what can happen if you're working at it that hard.
Well, and supposedly if you've made it to that step, then you're able to do that if you work through the book. Honestly, at that point, then it would be a concern for you. But really, you haven't worked through the book to that point.
I don't know if you guys could hear what Ian said, because he's on the other side of the room here, and the microphone doesn't like it over there, so he's moving over so he can repeat that about the dangers of the astral projection.
Okay.
If you want to. If not, they can ask and we'll talk about it again.
Well, in general, you don't need to worry about the dangers Barden has talked about unless you've gotten far enough to work through all of the previous steps of that book prior to that. And if you've gone through that development, then it's not really going to be a big risk anyway. But it's also not a risk unless you're breathing entirely in your astral body well enough that your physical body stops breathing. That's when you can get injured if somebody touches you or something. But before that point, it's generally something most people in the world never have to worry about.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I talk mostly about mental projection, because in that case you don't have to worry about it at all. And I've astral projected without breathing in my astral body and not had a problem. So, and yes, as someone pointed out, we usually, when we dream, is like the way it's described is we are in the astral realm when we're dreaming, sort of asleep in there. So we're connected to our body. Usually people see that like a silver cord that's attached to them. Not everyone sees that if they wake up in their astral form, but you're always connected to your physical body on some level. And then the dreaming state can happen in the astral, and that's why sometimes if you have a lucid dream in that state, then it can turn into an actual astral travel experience where you can find yourself going other places and so forth, because you're sort of already kind of disconnected from your sleeping physical form. But that's not dangerous when that happens at all. Let's see. Someone's going to be planting little tallgrass prairie in the backyard. Josh says, to give money. That's super chat. I have trolls in my garden. Would they scare the fae away? I think trolls are a type of fae, so no. I think they have some kind of relationship when it comes to that. Oh, they're cute little statues. Well, if they're statues of trolls, I don't think you have to worry about that at all. I think they know the difference between a real troll and a statue. I guess if you had a real troll, you'd probably be by a bridge, right? Because they're supposed to guard bridges. Rosie says, so cool, just joined in and you're talking about a subject I wanted to learn more about, astral projection. Ryder says, I experienced a couple of times astral and didn't realize I was not breathing until I gasped for air. It was amazing to experience it. Rosie says, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you very much. Got you on Patreon. Oh, okay. Thank you. Astral travel is fun. I've been doing it since college. Yeah, Patreon. I'm doing a once a month group Zoom call right now for my patrons on Patreon. Butterfly Magic with hot tea. Oh, that's quite the name. Hello, beautiful. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Thank you very much. Aren't trolls like 8 feet tall with clubs. Well, actually, I saw a couple, and they were kind of tall. The ones that I saw up at the cabin on the power spot, and but they didn't seem dangerous, not at the time, at any rate, to me. Real trolls online. Oh, well, that's different. We've had a few that we've had to get rid of from time to time. Phoebe says, I had my first lucid dream recently. I've been having ongoing dreams in the same location that pick up where I left off the night before, or if I wake up and some of what happened seems to come true. I've had that happen too. Could that be the start of Astral Project? It's a possibility, or it could be a different kind of dreaming. When I was a kid, I read the book The Stowaway to Mushroom Planet, and I started having these full color dreams about the book, and like everything was reversed. So the ground was blue and the sky was green, and I'd start having the dream, and then I'd start to go more into a deeper sleep, and a message would appear in my head that says continue tomorrow night, same time, same place. And then the next night the dream would pick up where it had left off. So I think our unconscious is capable of doing all kinds of interesting things. So I don't know. Happy Valentine's butterfly magic. Yay. Could that... Oh, I gotta join that as soon as possible. Okay. Is that the Patreon page that you're talking about? Me as well. I didn't realize you were doing that on Patreon. Sounds fun. Yeah, if I get a lot of people, I'll have to change how I do it because, I want to give people enough time to ask questions and stuff. Hi, Ryder. Thank you. Did you do something special today? No. I just got up, had a headache, took some Tylenol kind of stuff, and Ian meditated as he is wont to do in the mornings. And today is a regular day for us like any other day. Every day for us is Valentine's Day. So we didn't have to do something special. I've also really been having really intense deja vu, and just had deja vu about having deja vu. I hate that, but yes, I have that happen to me too. I figure when I have a lot of deja vu, then that means that I've been checking it out in my dream state. I've been looking ahead into the future and seeing the different possibilities. And when I start having a lot of deja vus, that means that's a path I've kind of checked out on a regular basis. I see it as a positive indicator, I hope. You never know. Okay, so Ryder had a lovely meal with a bottle of wine. Taylor says hello, hello. A whole bottle. Okay, so Butterfly and Ryder are chatting about it. Teresa says hi there. Hi. Okay. Everybody's saying hi to each other. Yay. Got that. So, now we're down to the bottom where everyone has said hi to everybody else. What do you guys want to talk about at this point? Open questions. I think we covered that. The other question that someone had written in was about getting too involved with the water nymphs and having trouble with that. But so that's just, a general warning we covered when we did the video about accidental contracts with spirits. You don't want to do that. If you want to stay human, at any rate. So Phoebe says, is there anything I should do other than set my intentions when reaching out to the Fae to make sure they don't think I'm trying to be selfish or use them for my own gain? I'm not sure that you need to do anything other than that. I mean, I don't ask the Fae to do me favors, so, well, sometimes they help me out. Like last night, I was having physical problems with cramping and stuff like that, and apparently one of them came in to check on me. It was the one that smells like lavender and was really strong. Although they couldn't make my leg cramps stop, it was nice that they came in to check on me. So I don't know, it's sort of a relationship thing I'm feeling out with them. And I had somebody write in and was upset with me for talking about the Fae at all and for encouraging people to have a relationship with them, because she thought that was irresponsible for me to encourage that. And I decided that the way she was talking, she thought she knew everything and probably was in a group that had that as a strong belief. And so it's up to you as an individual to decide what is going to be, what feels right. Think about the fact that if you were in a relationship with anybody, if a person or an animal or a plant, whatever it might be, think about the back and forth of the energy exchange between you and whatever that subject or object might be and what their needs are. And if you're treating the world with respect and you're honoring life force energy and you're not trying to manipulate things to do something that they're not inclined to do, then I personally wouldn't have a problem with it. But that's going to be one of those individual kinds of things. So let me back up here a little bit. Apparently I'm getting ahead of my questions, or your questions are getting ahead of me. How would you start a magical herb garden? Well, there's all kinds of plants that are pretty easy to come by that you can use for magical purposes. In my garden, I have lavender and sage and rosemary. I have some parsley, which I'm not sure what its magical uses are, but I've seen it. Earth. Oh, for the condenser?
Yes, it makes
a good earth condenser. I have roses. You just have to sort of figure out what kinds of plants grow well in your area and look up different correspondences and see what you can grow. There's a lot of poisonous plants that are used for magical purposes, so if you grow one of those, you need to be aware of the fact that it is a poisonous plant. One that's pretty common is the one that we get, the foxglove. It grows wild around here. There's a wild version of foxglove that just grows in all over in the woods, but foxglove is a plant that you have to be careful with when you're harvesting it because of the content of digitalis that is in it. So no matter what you're using them for, always know about the plant and its uses, and then its potential hazards, if there are any. And there's a lot of plants that different animals are allergic to, so keep that in mind. Someone says, what's your opinion on twin flames or soulmates? Well, I think we like to come up with as many categories as possible to put as many different potential experiences from the human condition into in order to explain how we feel about things. So my goal is to try and get away from all of the different definitions that people have about things and experience them directly, and not try and fit things into categories, because whenever you have okay, I need to find my soulmate or I need to find my twin flame, now you've got a list of properties of expected personality quirks or relationship issues that are described with each of them, that you're trying to find. And that means that whoever you meet, you've got this image in your head, sort of your own astral form or thought form that you've created, and you're trying to put that on top of someone else and try and see if they fit it. And that means you're not meeting actual people. You're meeting potential people that could fill a role that you're looking for. So personally, I don't think it's a good idea to worry about that kind of stuff at all, or to try and find that. I think that with Ian and I, we're a perfect match, but we wouldn't have found each other if we were looking for a twin flame or for a soulmate. Exactly. Because that wouldn't have happened. And so if we're talking about genuine love and relationships, I think getting rid of those preconception definitions and stuff like that is the only way to go. Because we're all such individual and unique expressions of the life force and our experiences and everything else. You really couldn't fit into a lump like that. So when Ian and I first met, he had this friend whose name was Fred. And Fred was a very strange man. He was getting divorced, or his wife had left him or something when Ian met him, and Ian was trying to actually help him. And all he was interested in was trying to get Ian to help him find a way to kill his wife magically or something like that. And when I first met Fred, it was on our way to a summer solstice celebration. So, June, this was before Ian and I had our date that I took him home from. And I was in the back seat with Fred. And Fred had a list. He had made a list. Now, this is something that's very popular along a lot of sites, is to make your wish list of what you want. And he decided to share his list with me on his perfect woman. And included in his list were very specific things like the size of the breasts, the number of orgasms the woman would have, the number of times they would have sex, all sorts of weird things in his list. And I'm looking through his list and I'm going like, oh good, I don't fit that one or that one. It's like, this is good for me. Because Fred is very strange. And so he's a good example of how making a list is not necessarily the exact way to go when you're getting that specific. That's why we talk about that self-defining, knowing what is important to you and what isn't okay with you. And those are the broad strokes. Those are, your values, your individual values of life, and how you're going to express yourself. Those are the important things, and these other things are just like random items that yeah, Fred was very odd. And that was actually kind of an interesting day, because we were supposed to go to the summer solstice celebration, so I was dressed all in red in one of my belly dancing outfits where the skirt comes up to your hip, like it's one of my belly dancing outfits, because I was going to a pagan event, and then no one showed up at the parking lot to meet us to take us to the event, so we couldn't go. And I ended up at a Tibetan monastery on Mount Ashland, which was, not really, I wasn't really dressed for a monastery. And I have to say the people there were quite gracious. I mean, we saw on Mount Ashland, they have this about a 40-foot tall,
60.
a giant Buddha that's just filled with prayers, that they've handwritten prayers is stuffed on the inside of the Buddha. And that's public, everyone's allowed to go see that and, walk around it. And then I heard this, I don't know if it was a spirit that called me or a hawk with a spirit with the voice of a hawk that called me, something invited me up the hill. And so I went. This is how I roll, right? So I walked up this hill and came upon this monastery, and the inside of it was quite fabulous, because they had done, all of it was hand done. They were learning Tibetan. There was this whole history there. And they were very gracious. No one ever even hinted that I was inappropriately dressed for this kind of environment. But yeah, so it was sort of an unusual day. And that was also the day, I think that was the day that you asked me about your staff. Or was that another day? That might have been a different day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a different day where you asked me if I could do a reading on your staff, and I slept with his staff and got all kinds of cool information from that and told him about it. But yeah, you just never know for sure what you're going to be falling into. And Fred clearly had the wrong idea of magic and what it was for and how it worked and what was important in a relationship, because clearly his list was all about what he wanted and nothing about another person. It was like, some fantasy reality. But yeah. So that's that. So if it was a light rose, if it were red, I would be a goner. Oh, that's the wine. Okay. Can you go over other elementals you've interacted with, like water nymphs you've come across? Well, the water nymphs were the ones who taught me how to swim. And I've not just, and there, we have a local lake, and the water nymphs there are very communicative. And when I made my water wand, I took it down to them, and they wanted, to see it. And I put it partly in the water, and they came up and touched it and did stuff with it. And then I gave them an offering of one of the stones, the kind of stones that I used on it, which was a blue lace agate that I had, and threw it into the water, and they actually reached up and grabbed it and pulled it in. So I have definitely encountered them, and I've also seen what I could describe as like a giant water dragon or water snake or something in a river, flowing along the rapids of the river that I was looking at. I've seen that a couple of times. So let's see. That's Prehistoric Matt says, brought up a good question. Have you ever seen fairies react to garden gnomes or garden decorations about them? Not that I've noticed. That doesn't mean that they haven't, but I haven't seen them. I have like an angel in my garden and some wind things that they like to play with. They like the windmilly. It's like it's one of those wind spinners. It's not a windmill, but it goes in different directions and stuff. And they like color. And it's my daughter got me that one, so it's a peacock. And I did put my granddaughter got me a couple of little fairy statues that sit in my garden. And I also have a stone foo lion that we found at like Goodwill or somewhere like that sits on our front step. We have stones that we picked up. Like I have a large boulder of obsidian that sits in my garden. So yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff like that around there, and it seems to be enjoyable to them, but not one in particular that they're interacting with that I've noticed. So, okay, Dormifra says, many years ago I was in the car with my dad going to visit my grandmother, 2 hours drive. It was a sunny early afternoon, and we were talking when suddenly I found myself kind of in my grandmother's body. I could see with her eyes, and she was cooking artichokes. It lasted for a few seconds, then I was back in the car. When we arrived, she had cooked artichokes. What was that? That would be telepathy, strong mental telepathy, being able to see out of somebody else's eyes. And it was probably a natural thing in the family, even if you guys never talked about it. Whoops, I went too far. I got excited here. All right. Siofra, is the snow melting where you are? Not sure where you live. We still have tons of snow here. No, we don't get snow here very often. I'm on the southern end of the Oregon coast, and our weather pattern is different from most of the rest of the state. And so it's very rare for us to actually get snow. We do get it on occasion, but this last set of storms, we didn't get snow or ice, thank goodness. We will sometimes get ice, but I had lots of snow when I lived up north, but that was different. Side note, thank you so much for doing this. You're welcome, Phoebe. I've had similar experiences like Dormifra. Yeah. And I've had that too, where you can suddenly feel something from somebody else and know what's going on. I've had it when somebody in the family has passed and seen them passing, even though I didn't know that they were sick. Thank you, Emily. Happy Valentine's Day. Keisha says, thank you for describing. Butterfly Magic says, what a great description of twin flame and other such groupings. Good. I'm glad that was a good description. So it happens on divine or the right time. Well, the most important thing we're learning here is how to be ourselves and how to be the best self we can be, really, when it comes to it. I like that idea about twin flames so much. It always felt like a lot of pressure. Yes. Mary Broadwell says, Fred, I love your stories. Yeah, yeah. Fred was a weird one. He actually became our revenge for the person that Ian was working for. The universe arranged this perfect revenge. It was quite something. We'll have to tell you that story another time. What is your experience with spirit animal guides? Do we have them? Well, I have them. I've got I when I lived up north, I adopted it initially. I adopted the bear as the mother bear as a guide because I wanted to learn from her, and she has definitely become one of my spirit animals as well as a power animal. And I think maybe it was there already. I just needed to tune into it, and and then the deer have always been associated with the deer ever since I was little. I would have total strangers remark on my deer-like qualities. Like they particularly would talk about my eyes seeming like a fawn and or a doe, and so it's always interesting when you realize that that's what it is. And I've done some guided meditations. I did one at one of the medicine wheel rituals I was at, where you were there to meet your spirit animal or whatever. And it was interesting because I found myself riding a bear with a deer walking ahead and then a coyote following me. And it turned out the coyote was actually Ian. At least that's what we decided later, because that's one of his animals. And so they sort of come and go, and you can sort of tap into any animal to learn a lesson from them so they can be a guide temporarily. And that's certainly how lots of cultures have learned things. That's where a lot of the different kinds of martial arts have come from, different types of yoga postures have come from, paying attention to the animals, different stories about the world and how it's created, and everything else comes from that observation. Native American cultures and Aboriginal cultures around the world have got a lot of important information that they pass along in the form of stories about their animals that people learn from, and then they notice certain traits of those animals in certain people, and then associate them with that. There is some idea of the that you can have different animal energies in your different chakras, and so you can have more than one, and it's sort of a cross-cultural kind of thing. People really get into this, don't dismiss or don't abscond with another culture's way of doing things because it's disrespectful. But when it's something that's like, almost every culture has got something similar to that, it's hard to make it think it's just that, one thing, and it's everywhere. So, some people would probably relate to it better than others. Some people are more aware of it, some people less. Okay, I didn't know you could do readings on objects. Yeah, I have that sometimes.
Psychometry.
Yeah, psychometry, not always fun. I've had some bad experiences tuning into some objects, even in antique stores. So, let's see. Yes, you are correct. Psychometry. It's called psychometry. Do you know if Fred's wish list was ever fulfilled? I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I don't think anyone could have qualified for that list. And we're not talking like, the best looking guy in town or anything. I mean, he didn't bring much to the table for what he was asking for in return. Yeah, that was just kind of weird. Fred was just an odd person. Yeah, I felt like my grandmother's death from the other room. That's kind of intense when that happens, isn't it? Excuse me. Apparently, I need some water. I'm talking too fast. Let me go. Yes, I would say that was definitely a form of telepathy. I'm a telepath, and there was nothing to read about or to try and understand what was happening to me. Being an empath and a telepath, it's kind of complicated, and knowing things you're not supposed to and all this other stuff. And science fiction books help me come up with the idea of trying not to read people's minds and giving them space. And comic books, like the X-Men and stuff like that, it's like people came up with these notions, and then I looked at them and thought I could apply them to what was happening to me. And so I definitely work hard at not reading certain things from people in certain situations. If I feel like my safety is at risk, all bets are off. If I need to know something because it's a safety issue, then I will know something, and that's the way it is. And so I've had experiences like that when I've been able to hear conversations that weren't physically close enough for me to be able to pick up with my ears. I'm pretty sure that was an out-of-body thing where I was there and listened and then translated it to my physical ears into my head and so forth, so I would knew what they were talking about. That's when I was pregnant with my daughter. That was an odd thing that happened, but two of mine are on an other named Martha and a platypus named Alice. Mine have names too. I joked with my mom one day. She wanted to know what animal she might be, and I told her she was an aardvark. She didn't like that. But I really like blue-footed boobies. I think they're fabulous, and I think, all of us can learn something from a blue-footed booby. They're just great little animals. So Mary says, so happy you got your second vaccine. Yes, and you are feeling well. Did you get the Moderna or Pfizer? I got the Moderna. My mom got the Pfizer, and she did well. So she's going to get her second shot, I guess, 3 weeks after her first one. So she'll be getting that in Virginia soon. No side effects. Well, I had a few side effects. I had like a headache the first time and a bit of a sore arm. The second shot, I had body aches kind of all over, but that was my immune system doing its thing, so I wasn't upset about it, and it didn't last for too long. It only took about two and a half days, and then I was fine, and now I'm perfectly good, so that's good. Yeah, so Ryder is telling Jason Pra, good way to practice is with a photograph in an envelope and see what you can pick up in the picture. That would be psychometry? Is that what you're talking about, or clairvoyance? And then move on to objects. It's just the way I practiced it, and it helped. Yes. It was intense, but in a way that gave me closure. Yeah, with my grandmother, it was very surprising, especially since we weren't that close anymore. And it was very comforting that my grandfather grew younger and came and got her, and she grew younger, and she was very happy and just was going off. I was watching, there's a Netflix special on right now called Surviving Death, which is interesting. I really liked most of the episodes, although I was kind of disappointed in the 2 episodes about mediums because it really didn't give me any information and that I thought it might because of my own channeling and mediumship and stuff like that. But the other episodes I thought were quite interesting. I'm cracking her up, huh? Were your gifts always as strong as they are now, or did you have to work, practice, open up more for it to come so clear to you? I was born with these gifts, and I had to work to tap them down and learn how to control them so they didn't completely overwhelm me. It's sort of like being born with a light socket that's plugged into a wall that's the voltage is too high or something, and it's just like there all the time. That's why I probably saw a lot of stuff when I was a kid. Saw lots of different kinds of spirits, had a lot of different activity, had them around me on a constant basis. I could see thoughts in my family. When my mother and father would have a big, huge argument and I wasn't home, I would know what had happened when I walked into the house because I actually would see lightning, what looked like actual lightning in the air and would know what that meant. And being able to read my father's mind was helpful to keep me safe, although it didn't help me keep my mother safe. The premonitions that I had when I went into puberty were intense and uncomfortable and unpleasant and confusing and frustrating, but they served to save my mother's life, I suspect, and probably ours as well, because my father was going to kill us. And so I think I needed to have all that then, and then learning how to control it so that I could do other things and have a life, and get some sense of control. One of the problems I had early on was because of my childhood, I was always trying to adapt to whoever was in the room. I was a very good chameleon, and I would take on attributes, even physical ones, that of people that they were thinking about or looking for or what have you. And so learning how to define myself as an individual was a huge challenge. So if you start off already an individual and defined, then go into having psychic experiences, I would think it would be better than the way it happened to me. But, you deal with what you have. Let's see. So let me go back there a second. Do you ever find at certain times sounds are louder and you can hear conversations that most would not be able to hear in usual circumstances? And have you ever heard conversations taking place that would be impossible to hear? Yes. When I was pregnant with my daughter, we had this very strange man who appeared on our doorstep, who found us because of the angel over the house, and he determined that my daughter apparently was a signal for Jesus to return in his spaceships and give everyone the bubonic plague that ate milk products. That was what I needed to hear, and he didn't want me to know that part. He was telling my husband about it outside, and I heard every single word he said. I mean, it was like I was standing right there. And so when my husband came back in the house, I told him what I'd heard. I told him I didn't want the man in my house anymore. I didn't want him in the hospital. I didn't want to hear about him. I didn't want him anywhere near me or my daughter when she was born. And he actually staked out a neighbor's house and kept calling her to find out if I'd had my daughter or not. And I'm not sure how he rearranged his brain when Jesus didn't come with his spaceships and, start the apocalypse. I also, at the time when this happened, I started eating more cheese and I started drinking a lot of milk because I determined that if in some weird planet way that this could possibly be true, I wanted to make a statement to the universe that I was seriously not interested in being around anybody who would kill off a bunch of people with the bubonic plague. And so I was gonna go with everybody else. So yeah, and I do that. I mean, let the statement by my actions to the universe know where I stand on things. So yeah, I've had that happen, and it was an accurate depiction of what the guy was saying. You have to watch out for when the imagination can make you think that something's happening when it's not. So getting confirmation is always a good idea, because that can happen too. Butterfly Magic saw that Netflix series and it was okay. These gifts take work to manage. Everything is amplified. Reading people is easy and it is tiring to a degree. Yeah. Yes. So Ryder says it's like having hearing beyond that of mortal man, although we are mortal. It's weird to explain. Yeah, and I think what it is you're actually projecting a part of your spirit to hear something that needs to happen or that you need to know. That's how it is for me anyway. If it's, as far as the way the universe arranges itself for me, if it's something I need to know because it could be risky for me not to know that, then I find a way to know it. However they do that, I don't know all the time, but it works. Emily says, I was on a walk when I was in high school and suddenly had to sit down and felt sick and insisted to my friend we go home. I I got a call saying my dad had been in an accident. And before that, when I was 13, my extended family went on a trip, and I insisted I couldn't go with when my sister said she couldn't. Before they even arrived at their destination, she had passed away. Yeah, premonitions are kind of annoying and hard to deal with sometimes. But yes. So Trini T says, I experienced this at the graveyard, hearing voices, but not swearing anyone. What is that called? Clairaudience is what that's called, when there's no one around that you could have overheard from a different level. If you can hear a conversation and there's nothing there, and it's a legitimate kind of conversation, like spirit voices or something like that, and that's what it's called, clairaudience. I did do a video on all the different clairs to describe what they were, so you might want to look at that just to get a little more information on that one. We weren't born with gifts that strong, but some inclination to them if we work and practice at it. Can we ever get messages as clear as you, or does it just depend? In my opinion about magic and being a witch, following a pagan path, doing the rituals, the meditations and stuff like that, is that the goal is not necessarily to develop those abilities. The goal is to develop yourself and become more of your own individual. But as you do the exercises, the abilities happen. And people that get into it just with the sole desire to gain psychic abilities and stuff like that, generally speaking, don't do the work because it doesn't happen fast enough for them. So I think that kind of weeds out a lot of people. And it just takes time. We're all here at different stages in our development, and when things are supposed to open up to us, and if you rush them and you're not ready to handle them, then that can be just as bad as not having them at all. So what do you apply astrology? When do you apply, astrology? Not often. I sort of dabble here and there. I work with planetary energies. And when I was younger, I did a lot of wandering through the solar system and visiting different planets and taking rides on comets from time to time because that was fun. But I'm not an astrologer. I just have a general idea. I know something about my birth chart from talking to some people who are, and I'm generally aware of Mercury going retrograde and how it can affect the things I'm trying to get accomplished during their retrograde time, like right now. So it depends on what kinds of forces you're working with and what you think you need to have. And for some people, if I'm doing something about, like a specific type of spell, if I can plan it on the day of the week that is going to be most conducive to it, then I will. When I made my planetary wands, I worked on them only on their day to start with. And, to form them and stuff like that to make sure that I got the most amount of that energy going through it, and think about what their energies were like and what would work for them. So, there is a certain amount of that. I'm not sure if that's actually astrology, though. That's just sort of an awareness of the planetary energies and what they represent. But anyway, okay, so let me go back up a little bit here. Yeah, I'm not so much into the math. Nisha says, just ducking in on a break at work, sending love from snowy Portland. Be well, everyone. Thank you, Nisha. Phoebe says, I never hear or anything, just things just kind of come to me, or I'll just realize something and feel that it's right. Well, that is No, that's the smelling thing, the knowledge. Clairvoyance is the seeing. Clairaudience is the hearing. Clairsentience, that's it. Clairsentience is the knowingness. So yeah, that's another one of the clairs. There's a bunch of different ways that that can happen. So Keisha says, my friend was reading a book on blood magic and he saw two spirits at the end of his hallway. Okay, did they want his blood? I'm just like, how does it quite relate? Evie says, I like that a lot about wanting to just work on yourself and see it that way. Kind of like love. Yeah. Alexis, says, is schizophrenia related to spiritual gifts, but maybe be explained by a person who is not grounded, so they become scared of what they don't understand and it creates their personal hell. I don't know, this is a touchy subject, but I've wondered. Yeah, and the thing is that you've got your interface between your brain and then your spirit. So if something's not working in the brain, then those messages and information and things can get scrambled with each other. The fact that schizophrenics often have episodes of telepathy and so forth makes any of us who are psychic worry, at least in part, that something's wrong. Or that if we told somebody about it, then that would be an indicator. But that's not the only indicator for schizophrenia, because usually it's not just hearing voices, but you're hearing voices talking about you specifically, and plotting things against you. There's usually a paranoia associated with it. And so, if the brain chemistry can be fixed, that doesn't mean a person who is also psychic won't be still psychic, even if their schizophrenia is under control. So yeah, it is one of those kind of subjects that's difficult to talk about because I'm not a specialist in brain disorders, but I do know that, we have a physical body and a brain, and then we've got our spirit body, our astral form, our mental form, and so forth. And certainly we can experience things outside of the normal range of human abilities and sometimes bring that information back. So, but the brain is a physical organ, and it's an organ like any other and can certainly have its own dysfunction. So I wouldn't recommend someone who thought they might be schizophrenic not go see a doctor and just do grounding exercises. I would recommend that they do the medication and do grounding exercises. I've got to blow my nose. And certainly that's important. Good thing I took an antihistamine. All right. So Emily says, do you use breath work, or how do you find your best enter a place where you are ready to receive knowledge personally? I am experimenting and you're very knowledgeable. Well, focusing, quieting my mind, being still, and being open to receiving information, that's a key, because we train ourselves to ignore a certain amount of information, otherwise we'd be flooded with stuff all the time. So our brain has been trained to determine what is and what is not good information. And so by opening myself up to receiving information, whether my brain thinks it's good or not, which is an exercise that I do, where I try to look at the world without filters, that helps me to access those kinds of things. And I've been meditating for so long that really all I have to do, taking a couple of breaths and centering myself and paying attention to what's going on around me. If you're distracted in your own head, then you're less likely to hear what's going on or sense anything. So certainly attention and focus and stillness are essential, and openness, non-judgmenting, mental kind of openness to getting that experience that you can then make some kind of a decision about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for you to continue. This is one of the reasons why I'm seeing more of the Fae, I think, is because I have sort of dropped the definitions of all these people that are out there. I mean, there's so many different things that ancient peoples used to believe in and were wrong about. Just because people used to believe something doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just like, it's not necessarily a good criteria for judging. So I'm trying to stay open-minded when it comes to that. And I think that that's one of the biggest keys, is being open-minded. So Butterfly Magic says, my daughter is here with me. She wants to ask if you can name some things that are endless. Her example is being stuck in a time loop. Something that is endless.
Well, it's kind of a concept.
It is. As a concept, there's no such thing as something that is endless, because everything is always changing from one state to another. So I don't think that I have an answer to that question. I mean, even time will stop eventually if you go far enough. That's the one thing you can count on. Everything changes from one state to another, from birth to adulthood, to death, to spirit, to new life, from plant to seed.
Space is supposed to be.
Supposed to be, but they may have actually discovered the end of space. Scientists are looking for it. So, whoops, don't do that. I did the wrong button. Okay. At Alexis, I wonder that too, but crossing between psychology and parapsychology seems so touchy. Interesting, though. I wanted to say thank you, but I was driving. Well, good for not saying thank you while you were driving. Prehistoric Matt says, my dog just stole my bottle of Dr. Pepper. Well, maybe he thinks there's something in it that he needs, or he wants your attention. So at Alexis, I asked my tutor something similar when I was training in a spiritualist church years ago, and she told me there is a difference, a hairline fracture of a difference. That would be between being a psychic and being schizophrenic. I sometimes have dreams that line up with life-changing events. In case of COVID, I had a dream approximately 8 or 9 months before. So did I. I knew it was coming. About 3 days before the pandemic, scene in my dream popped up in my life, so I held off on my spending. Now I'm glad I did. Good for paying attention. And I paid attention too and stayed indoors behind a wall for a while. I listened to the scientists. Crazy me. So Butterfly Magic says, claircognizance, knowing, clairsentience, sensing, clairaudio, hearing, clairolfaction, or alience, smelling, clairgustatory, tasting, clairvoyant, seeing, or precognizant. Yes, I get a lot of the smelling now. Ryder says, at Alexis, when you notice a hairline fracture, what a huge difference it makes. Making yourself familiar with the differences can help so much. Keisha says, I was asked if I could read minds by people at the psychiatric ward when they had no inclination in the conversation to ask why. Well, that would be a weird question. I can tell you, when I go to my doctor's office and they have that form for me to fill out, and one of the things is, are you having hallucinations? I always say no. Because their definition of a hallucination is something that isn't there. And my definition of what I'm seeing is something that is, just something they can't see. And so it's not what they mean by the word. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Phoebe says, I also think there's something to people that are more neurodivergent, are also more in tune with other realms and spirits. I had an experience where I heard the sound of color. I was on acid. Yes, I was on acid. But it was pretty awesome. And, there are those conditions in the brain where the senses get mixed up, and people see numbers as colors or hear them as sounds, or there's all sorts of different ways that the senses can be scrambled in the brain and be interesting. I really liked the sound of color, though. That was awesome. Emily said, thank you so much. You're welcome. Writer says, would the space-time continuum loop be more of a scientific theory? Might be worth checking with them. Well, I mean, time is an illusion, so I'm not sure that we would be able to measure it that way, considering that according to scientists and according to spiritualists, all time happens at the same time, so there is actually no time and all time simultaneously, so space-time continuum is an illusion, right? That how it works? So, yeah. Phoebe says, I had ongoing almost end of the world like coming kind of dreams leading up to COVID. Yeah, it is definitely something a lot of us felt coming. It would be funny if scientists discovered the universe was on the back of a massive turtle. Yes, that would be. And then there's all the other turtles that are on top of it. Of course, I'm on Turtle Island. I don't know what island you're on. Everyone's on a different continent. Not everyone, but a lot of you. So, Jason Pra says, yeah, I don't pay attention to the rest of the world, to be honest. It helps me stay sane. Sometimes. End of the world or end of humanity? Raina says, I had a dream of where a skeleton-looking figure riding on a chariot on fire with lions was coming down from the skies 2 months ago. Well, that would be sort of a startling thing to see. I wouldn't care for that image at all. Ryder says, that is one of the hairline fractures of a difference. You are aware of the difference between what is real and what is not. Yeah, I guess so. That would be the case when it comes to, what they mean by hallucination and what I mean by seeing something that they can't see, because just because their senses aren't up to it doesn't mean that there's not something going on. This is true. Butterfly says, hallucination is what you see, hear, taste, but that other people do not see, hear, taste. I know that's what they mean, but no, it's not what I mean. If I told my doctors all the different things I saw, like, the smells in my room of lavender and amber, and we had vinegar the other day. We have no clue where the heck that came from. It was in the kitchen, but we couldn't find any spilled vinegar anywhere, and we both smelled it. We've had vanilla in the living room just suddenly appear out of nowhere, just as strong as could be, and we both smelled it. So, if you have, like, someone else who is experiencing the same thing, then it's less likely that it's a hallucination, because by definition, that would be an internal process. By their definition, that would be something wrong with your brain. And having two brains have exactly the same thing wrong with them in exactly the same way to see exactly the same thing or experience the same thing at the same time is highly improbable. Although there are shared psychoses, I don't think they share them that way. I think it's different. I did meet a couple that had a shared psychosis once. That was really weird. It was a shared conspiracy theory thing that started off as a paranormal investigation and turned into a what? Okay, that's not what I expected. So, Phoebe says, prehistoric, I was on like a ship running away from this massive storm that was wiping everything out like a spaceship, but we were just around the top of the ocean and land, and we stayed ahead. Good that you stayed ahead of it. I get a lot of those kind of dream things. Also, doctors are so behind with psychology and brain research with these sorts of things. Mental health, they just want to give you pills for not that some of it could be real. Well, when I've gone to psychologists and I told them about my experiences, not a single one of them ever suggested there was something wrong with my brain chemistry. That's because I'm grounded, I think. Or they were afraid to say anything to me. Who knows for sure. Ryder says, I've been smelling mint since watching your videos. Yeah, see, I planted that idea in your brain that, the smelling of mint out in the woods could indicate the fairies, because I certainly smell it when they're around. So there you go. It's my fault. Matt says that was just the end of the age of the dinosaur. Taylor says, would meditation be the go-to practice for most things? Well, meditation depends on what kind of, there's a lot of different types of meditation. There's silence meditation. There's active what's the word I'm looking for? Mindfulness meditation that you can do while you're doing an activity. Meditation is kind of like a large umbrella under which a lot of different kinds of activities can be put.
There is a yogic definition of meditation, though.
What's the yogic definition of meditation?
Yogic definition of meditation, they call, and I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's spelled DHYANA, and it consists of becoming so involved with observation of an object that you become the object itself, and then you can attain some clairvoyant knowledge about that object that way. And that's what the yogic definition of meditation is.
Okay, then. Jason Pross says the most apocalyptic, I'm saying apoplectic, yeah, apocalyptic dream I had was of two serpent-like beings strangling the sun. In that dream, everyone, including the press, were in a panic. Well, if I saw two serpent-like beings strangling the sun, I think I would be in a panic myself. Phoebe says that prehistoric, the storm was crazy too. It was like a ball of energy with lightning and this huge dark swirling cloud thing. I get a lot of storm dreams when something is coming my way, like I get tornadoes a lot. And by how close the tornado is and how big the tornado is, it tells me how close the danger is to me personally, and it gives me a warning to watch out for things. I don't take it as a literal thing because I don't live in a tornado country, or part of the country, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, and there's a lot of that kind of imagery in dreams that sort of give you hints and warnings about things that might be coming. Mary says, I woke up stressed about many things today, but I remembered that I get to hear you tonight and you would help me feel better. And you have made me feel better. Thank you. Good. I'm so glad. She says, can you tell me about connecting to tree spirits? Well, the exercise, the tree grounding meditation that I do is a good one that you can do actually with a tree itself, not just in your room. And that is how you start that connection to a tree spirit. You find a tree that draws you for some reason, one that's easily accessible. And I did a lot of sitting at the base of the tree and becoming the tree, sort of what Ian was talking about as the meditation of becoming the object and focusing on it so much.
It could also be a thought and an idea, not necessarily an object. It can be an ideal or a virtue.
Right. But in this case, we're talking about a tree.
A thing, yeah.
Right. And so as you tune into the energy of the tree and try to like really become and feel its life force and its energy there, then you begin to tap into the spirit of that tree, and then that can become a conversation. And conversation, of course, is the wrong word because they don't use words, but they use feelings. That one tree in the backyard that reached out to me when I was in such a bad state, it did it on its own. I wasn't connecting to it. It reached out to me. And so I know that that can happen too. And I've had encounters where, something's going on and I can now touch a tree and ask it for information, like show me what's up ahead, or show me what's wrong in the forest, or show me what's happening, what do I need to know? And I'll get imagery and the feelings and so forth, since they don't use language. And trees are easier to communicate with because their lifespan is not so incredibly long, or their existence, like a rock, is not as chatty, let's say, when it comes to information. So, let's need to go back up a little bit here. So Phoebe says, I had these dreams over and over for like 6 months. I almost never repeat dreams in that way. They went away right around last year, around November of last year, because the thing that they were warning you about had arrived, I'm assuming. Ryder says, again, the difference. You are grounded, not paranoid. You don't have voices telling you to hurt yourself or others. This is true. Thank you for noticing.
Maybe you did, you wouldn't listen to him.
That's true. Even if I did, I'd tell them to shut the hell up and leave me alone, because there was no way in hell I was going to do that. And you know the difference between what is real and not saving the world. Thank you very much. Fair. Alexis says, oh, I had a dream a while ago that a snowstorm was trying to say something to me. That's an interesting notion. While all I was trying to do was find a way inside the building I was standing outside of. Oh, gee, I wonder what it was trying to tell you. That could be fun. That could be some kind of a, spirit being trying to communicate that has to do with snow. Who knows? Zachary says, when doing spell work, should I focus on the candle or let it burn and not focus too much? Well, it depends on what kind of spell work you're trying to do. There are certain things that you want to light the candle and just let the candle burn out. If you're trying to do like a banishing of something, like banishing a connection in a relationship with someone or a thought that you're trying to let go of, then you don't want to focus on the candle. You want to, do your thing, write the name of what you're trying to get rid of, burn the candle, and then not think about what it is. Otherwise, you're reconnecting with that. But if what you're trying to do is to connect with something or put energy into something, then focusing on it is not a bad thing. You can, focus. If you're doing a healing candle, for example, you can charge the candle up, and you can either not sit and meditate with the candle and just know that as the candle burns, it's going to send that energy to the person you're trying to send it to, or you can sit there with the candle and focus on sending the energy with the candle, with the energy that you put in. So there's no single answer, as with everything. It depends upon the circumstances and what you're trying to accomplish. So the main advice for that would be to think through what it is you're wanting. What is your purpose and goal for doing that in particular? And if it's a meditation and you're trying to get yourself into to zone out, looking at the flame and focus on the flame, there's a different thing there too. So that's with any of this stuff. That's why thinking is so important, to look at the forces that you're wanting to interact with and which way they tend to go already. And the idea is you find the forces that are going in the direction that you're wanting to move, and then you go along with them, and then they assist you in that direction. It takes a lot of energy to try and fight the flow, and make something different than what it is. That's in some cases impossible to do anyway. But even if it wasn't impossible, it's still a huge waste of your own energy, and wears you down. So to me, magic is about feeling and tuning into and understanding the natural currents that are going through you and your life, your community, your country, your world, the life forces that are around you, the larger forces of nature, which is why they say if you're trying to banish something, you do it at a certain time of day or night, as opposed to wanting to bring something in. You do it at a different time because there's larger forces that would be assisting you in that direction. And so the more you think about and notice that kind of stuff, and the more you can be sort of tapped into those flows, the more natural your warnings will be. It's like I don't sit down and do scrying to try and figure out what I should do during a day, or if something is coming. I expect that if there's something blocking my way, I'm going to have a dream that's going to tell me that something is going to be blocking my way, and I need to sort of change paths or change my route or wait it out or whatever. and going through the day. I have days when I leave my house and I'm going like, okay, so today I'm supposed to be driving lower than the speed limit, because every time I turn around, someone has pulled in front of me and is going lower than the speed limit. So when this happens, you have a couple of choices. I could get upset that everyone's going slow and be silly and try and get around them or get, anxious. I can accept the situation and go slower and assume that the universe has got a reason for doing this to me, and that maybe if I was going the speed limit, something would happen to me ahead that I don't know anything about on a conscious level, and I'm going to avoid it. And the universe is making sure that I'm going to avoid it by continuing to put these people in front of me that are going slow. And so I just accept it. I'm going like, okay, this is what's happening. Or I get a warning like, leave my house, and within 2 blocks I have 3 different cars that have pulled in front of me. I'm like, okay, so I have to watch out for cars pulling suddenly in front of me, and that'll happen all the way to my office. It's interesting. And then other days I don't see any cars, so paying attention to those movements of your own flow, and how your flow is either being encouraged in a direction or impeded in a direction, helps you to kind of tap into when's the right time to do something. I kind of went off field there, but I think that was a good answer for somebody. Okay, so can figure out what it was trying to tell me. Yeah, sometimes we never do figure that out. I would love to be a tree. No one expects things from a tree. Well, you might not want to be a tree in a forest if they want a log, so, might want to rethink that no one expects things from a tree.
Well, a lot of people just abuse trees for no reason, too.
I know, it's true. They like to draw hearts on them and carve into them and all sorts of other things. Poor trees. Okay. What kind of tree would you like to be? A willow. They remind me of my grandma. Yeah, willows are very nice down by the water. A weeping willow or a tall, straight willow. There's different kinds of willows. Pussy willows in the spring. What's this? Okay, later. There, his favorite tree. Yes. Willows are very associated with water energy. They make my lunar wand is made from willow that I harvested down by the lake where the water nymphs are. So, how does one work on their energy? Everything you do works on your energy. Clearing your energy out. Well, that's what when they talk about shadow work, that's part of it. When you work on yourself, your personality, you do a sort of a clear look at where you are and who you are, and whether you like where you are and who you are. And if you don't like what's going on around you, the people that you attract and stuff like that, working on yourself can change that, because you're part of the equation. It's like, if you think about it, really negative people tend to not like positive people, energetically speaking. They might be attracted to them briefly, but they want to change them, and if that person's got good boundaries, that doesn't work, and then they go away because they lose interest. I don't know. The different meditations and stuff like that can help you become aware of thought processes that you have that might be self-destructive. And if you're engaging in a self-destructive activity, finding out why, what's the reason behind it. And then if you can uncover the reason, then you can work with that. It's like psychoanalysis can help a lot with people. Like, I had a lot of that kind of stuff to work through because of my, childhood trauma and whatnot. And it's a process. It's not something that happens instantly. And you're always working on yourself a little bit, always clearing more stuff out. I mean, I have encounters with people where afterwards I'm like, why the heck did I let that happen? Or why did I do that? What was my motivation? I didn't like that I did that. What can I learn from this so that I can get something out of it and at least have some positive thing come out of it? If I can learn something from a negative experience, then it's not a wasted experience. And it sort of informs how I act in the future. And then forgiving yourself for not being perfect, because, none of us are. So, writer says, Siofra has a lovely tree meditation at the beginning of her videos. Worth doing the meditation. Just connect with the tree, sit with it, feel it, and ask questions. Thank you. It's one of my favorite meditations, actually. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be continuing to do this or not. So I decided I should share the things I thought were most important in the beginning, just in case. I was never doing it again. You never know. But, alrighty. I think we're having a pretty good conversation here. So, I hope everybody has a great week coming up before I see you next. And again, if you have any questions, definitely send me an email. And I'm not checking my email every day, but I try to check it every couple of days or so. And do my best to answer questions when I can. Yeah, no one should have to go through childhood trauma. It would be nice if we could actually create a world where that didn't happen anymore. Not yet, though. Mary says, thank you. I will do that meditation at the base of a tree. It sounds divine. Yes, it does. This was lovely. Look up Patreon. All right. Yay. I am definitely on Patreon. Thank you for being here, Siofra. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you so much. Love listening to you. Thank you very much for the kind words. I appreciate it. And yay, we didn't have any trolls today. The internet kind. I don't know if we had other kinds of trolls who were listening in and wondering what we were talking about. But yeah. So you guys all have a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you happen to be. And we'll talk more later. Blessed be everybody. Bye-bye.